Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Denice Show. It is my honor today to have Admiral and Dr. Peter Kikaraas. Admiral and Dr. Peter Kikaraas. Admiral Kikareas, ladies and gentlemen, is an expert on antiterrorism and counterterrorism. He's been listed in Who is Who in America and Who's Who in the world. He was the security architect for the Olympic Games in Athens, Greece. He's been part of the National Defense Staff and an operations director. He's been the Minister of Defense and created and implemented war games, computer-assisted exercise technologies. He's been patrolling and securing NATO defense and peace operations in the southeastern Mediterranean. Welcome to the broadcast, Admiral Kikareas.
Denice, good afternoon. This is an honor for me to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, sir. So let's talk about, I want to begin this very important conversation with a forceful, what I consider to be a very forceful speech, very concise by the President of the United States on Monday at the United Nations General Assembly. And the President made the point in saying that rogue regimes that are represented at the United Nations not only support terrorists, but threaten other nations and their own people with the most destructive weapons known to humanity. And the President went on from there to say authority and authoritarian powers seek to collapse the values, the systems, and the alliances that have prevented conflict and have tilted the world towards freedom since World War II. And the President talked about the international criminal networks, and he talked about how he expects the nations that are sitting there at the United Nations General Assembly to respect the interests of their own people as well as the rights of every other sovereign nation, and spoke to how all nations should be strong, sovereign nations that allow their people, that allow individuals in their countries to flourish in the, quote, fullness of the life intended by God, end quote. I thought the speech was a beautiful speech. It was presented on the 230th anniversary of the United States' own Constitution. And when I heard the President's words, I thought about the various articles, sir, that you have written and published on your LinkedIn site. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go to Admiral Peter Kikaraas, and the spelling of his name is there on the screen. For those of you that are listening on podcasts, Kikareas is Kikareas. Again, having been a commander of NATO, sir, you talk about just recently Turkey and how Turkey has been a staunch NATO ally. But you mentioned the fact that their air base, which is at the disposal of the United States military, has several nuclear weapons, and that it appears that the president of Turkey, Erdogan, has moved significantly away from the United States. You mentioned, sir, to me in a conversation the other day that Erdogan has actually talked about retaking the island of Cyprus. He's talked about retaking territories that are part of other sovereign nation states and retaking them as part of an Islamic republic for the Turkish government, for the country of Turkey. Could you speak to that, sir, just briefly?
Regarding the last one, or start speech?
Well, if you'd like to comment on President's speech, please comment on his speech, and then if you would, please talk about the fact that Erdogan, as a NATO ally, has talked about initiating aggression against countries that had previously been part of that war. If you recall World War I, well, you won't recall it, but in reading history, you know that the caliphate was over basically after World War I, that the Ottoman Empire was ruined. It was devastated. And so Erdogan has talked about retaking territory for Turkey. So I'd like you to address things that you have heard, speaking other languages, and you've heard that directly. But, sir, if you'd like to speak to the president's speech first, please feel free to do so. Thank you.
Denice, you said what needs to be said, and I was very proud to hear our president to start his topic, which in my opinion is a number one, because we've learned here in our great country, America, and it is in the Amendment 1 of our Constitution that all people have the freedom to faith, the freedom to religion, and all these good things that the president said, and so greatly to all the members of the United Nations. So this was impressive, and I like that very, very much. Now, if I move on to the other question regarding Turkey, Turkey is something. Is for someone like me, because I've been following Turkey for many decades now.
Well, now, yes, and you were born in Greece, sir. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Greece.
You were born in Greece, and the Turks were part of, the government of Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire was responsible for the massacres of its Greek civilians and the Armenian genocide. So as a Greek American and having been born in Greece, you can certainly speak to that. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you understand, the reason why I wanted to go into Turkey today is because after the president talked about how there needs to be this respect for people's freedom and their right to live their life under God as God intended them to be able to live their life, I'm just concerned that we have part of a Western alliance, a country like Turkey, an Islamist regime that's supporting terrorists. And I'd like you, sir, to please speak to the fact that Erdogan has talked about actually retaking territory and initiating aggression against other countries. Will you speak to that statement that you shared with me just the other day about that?
Yes, of course. Denise, thank you very much. And actually, Erdogan increased very much the aggressiveness of Turkey against other countries. Erdogan, changed Turkey from a secular Islamic country to an extreme Islamic country, very extreme, and threatens every day many countries around Turkey, and especially Cyprus, Greece, and the Eastern Mediterranean countries.
And certainly Israel as well.
And Israel, and we saw that today, that how Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, felt so bad about Erdogan, who said that the Gaza area has to go back to the Treaty of 1946, and so on and so forth. And Netanyahu made a post and said that Erdogan is lying, and please stop lying, something like that, and articulated him. So he continues, and actually in Cyprus, the Turks invaded 1974 for peacekeeping operation. This makes me laugh, because they invaded there, they split the country, which is a full member of the European Union, and though the Turkish Cypriots were 18% of the population, he got about 38% of the land, and since then for 60 years now, there are 40,000 troops on Cyprus. He goes around the island because they found gas and oil, and he drills illegally against all international laws inside the economic zone of Cyprus for gas and oil. And this is against also what we tell him, what Secretary of the State Pompeo told him to stop, against the EU. What they tell him to stop, and tell him that they are going to impose sanctions. Does not give any attention to anyone and continues.
Let me interrupt you. Let me
yes,
ask
please.
you a question. So Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, has requested, or perhaps demanded would be a better word, that the president of Turkey, Erdogan, desist and stop all drilling for oil on the island of Cyprus. And,
yes.
and Erdogan continues to do so. Now, has President Trump moved forward as yet on sanctions against Turkey? I'm not aware of that. Has he done so? No.
No, I don't do that yet.
Okay.
No.
But Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has threatened Turkey with possible economic sanctions for drilling illegally for oil on the island of Cyprus. Is that correct, sir?
Oh yes. Not once, but repeatedly.
Okay.
Himself and his envoys and ambassadors repeatedly have said that.
Okay.
But Erdogan does not give any attention to that. Does not give any attention to anyone.
Sir, Wilbur Ross, I believe the Secretary of Trade for the United States, was in Turkey recently. And Wilbur Ross, speaking on behalf of the United States and the President, has talked about increasing bilateral trade between Turkey and the United States from 20 billion, billion, from 20 billion to 80 billion. I have to assume, sir, and maybe I'm wrong in doing so, but would you suppose that Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Trade, would be involved in these negotiations with making it clear to Erdogan that he must stop drilling for oil on the island of Cyprus? Have you heard anything about that, sir?
Yes, of course, Denice. I heard that he went there, and our Secretary of Trade, and he stayed there for 3.5 days. And they said that they will move from 20 billion to 100 billion per year. And this is something that is shocking, very much shocking, because this is the opposite, exactly the opposite from what we have told him, that they are going to impose sanctions because of the S-400 that he bought already, which plays something like a threat to the region and to us, and also to the other things that he's doing. And if we follow the oath that Kemal Atatürk left behind the Turks, and Erdogan says every day that he's imposing this kind of the oath, this oath wants Turkey to get many territories of other countries around Turkey, like Cyprus, like the Eastern Aegean Islands, like the northeast part of Greece. And so he has a plan to create a very strong military by 2023, which is the 100 years after the 1923, and expand as much as possible. And he needs money, and he invests aggressively to the defense area. So we give him the opportunity to do that. Though we should cripple him by sanctions, not let him move ahead like that, because he will be a threat to our national interests, to our allies, and to everybody.
I understand, sir. So it sounds like we do not know By the way, correction, I believe I referred to Secretary Wilbur Ross as the Trade Secretary. He is representative of the United States as the U.S. Commerce Secretary. So basically what we're saying is we don't really know the details of the negotiations between U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross and the leadership in Turkey. He may have made it clear that Turkey has to stop drilling for oil. We're not sure about that. What we do know, sir, and you wrote about this in one of your articles, which I so appreciate, wanted to have you on the show to also discuss. Apparently, one of the reasons why Turkey is drilling for oil is they want an oil pipeline. And they want this oil pipeline to provide the Russians oil and gas. And this will provide Russians oil and gas, and they'll be able to export that to Europe. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, of course. And this is in continuation to the Turkish Stream pipeline, which brings Russian oil to Europe through the Black Sea. And this is in progress.
Yes.
It's making that right now.
Yes.
And in Cyprus, there is an alliance between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece to create a pipeline, the East Med pipeline, where we as United States are participating also. And also we have ExxonMobil, which is drilling for us for the security of this pipeline. And Erdogan is trying to destroy this pipeline.
Yeah, Erdogan's trying to sabotage the alliance between Greece and Israel and Cyprus because they potentially could be a tremendous exporter of oil and gas to Europe. And so to
yes.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
And from there, there's so much oil and gas that they will be able later on to provide all the gas and oil that Europe needs for many, many, many years. And this will be a threat to the Russians, and of course to Turkey, because Russians are behind also in backing Turkey very much.
I want to talk about the S-400s that the Russians have sold to Turkey. The S-400s is a surface-to-air missile. It's a long-range surface-to-air missile, and I understand it's comparable to the United States Patriot system. The fact that Russia is selling S-400s to Turkey, what do you see as the possible use of these S-400s by Turkey? I look at the statements by the president of Turkey, and he's continually talking about the destruction of the state of Israel. And he talks about, of course, hurting and destroying, taking back land from Greece and Cyprus. Do you believe this military alliance between Turkey and Russia that continues to evolve and develop, do you see this as a threat to our ally Israel in the Middle East, and do you see it as a threat to Europe and our European allies?
Oh yes, exactly. This is a great threat that is not so much visible to everybody right now, but it is visible to the eyes of the experts. Because with the S-400, Turkey will have a radius of about 400 miles from Turkey, and they block with them the Aegean Sea, they block the Eastern Mediterranean, they block Cyprus, and they block Israel. So everything that flies over there, even our aircraft, except the F-35s who are stealth, will be
under threat.
Brought down under threat.
Right.
Great threat.
Right.
Great threat. And so this is something that this is existential threat. This is why they take it. And this is not only that, they will continue, because they ask from the Russians, and they have a contract, they started already to create a nuclear plant. And Erdogan openly said that he wants to get nuclear weapons also. And this is crazy. That is what's going on. And we still have the Israeli base over there. And we know that during the coup and afterwards, he surrounded our base and he was threatening us. And this is something that I've written again and again and again, that we should move this base elsewhere. And there are places that are safer, much safer for us.
Mm-hmm. I think it's deeply disturbing that during President Bush's administration, that Turkey would not allow the United States in pursuing the war against Islamic terrorism there, that the president of Turkey would not allow us to use the base and I want to say in Kirkuk, but I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I'm looking for the proper... Ursulik, thank you, sir. The Ursulik base there in Turkey. We wanted to be able to open up a northern front against Iraq. The U.S. military could take Baghdad. As a result of that, I guess the Turks made it very difficult and virtually impossible for us to do so. NATO allies are supposed to come to the defense of other NATO allies. I wouldn't like to see the United States come to the defense of Turkey if, for example, Turkey decided to take Israel on. And we know that the Turks continues to support terrorist groups around the Middle East, terrorist groups that are actually working as proxies to attack the state of Israel. You know, the Turks are supporting various Palestinian terrorist groups against the state of Israel. And so my concern is, how does that work if a NATO ally, through its terrorist proxies, continues to attack Israel, and then Israel attacks Turkey? How do you suppose that that kind of scenario plays itself out, sir?
Denice, this was a very clever, really very, very clever, comment that you made right now.
Thank you.
You know that if this happens, we're tied. Our hands are tied under NATO Article 5. We have to go and support Turkey against Israel.
But we wouldn't. But I don't believe we would do that, sir. Do you?
We're not going to do that.
No.
But this is what NATO says. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons also, Denice, that I write repeatedly again and again and again. And I have many comments from high officials that we need to get Turkey out of NATO. Turkey does not belong to NATO. Mm-hmm. Turkey is different, has changed too much. Is not loyal, has other tasks and goals and missions. Mm-hmm. All those that you said, and much more. He's the best ally with Russia. And Russia is one of the biggest enemy of NATO.
Yes.
So, I don't know how all this is a good ally with Iran also. How all this can it be and have Turkey in NATO? I don't understand.
Sir, I want to move on quickly. So the Kurds, I want to talk about the Kurds for just a moment. The Kurds were really the only group in the Middle East that worked for any length of time. People can say, well, the Iraqi special forces, the Iraqi army assisted the United States. But the Kurds really worked with the United States to take out the Islamic State's caliphate in part of Syria and Iraq. The caliphate extended from Syria into Iraqi territory. And so the Kurds really worked with us. And Erdogan, the president of Turkey, continues to attack the Kurds. Also, I just read a report that indicated that the Afghan Taliban, a terrorist group and operation, wants to establish a parallel government, an illegitimate government, to shadow the legitimate government of Afghanistan, and Turkey and Iran, standing together, are standing with the Taliban. So the Turks are attacking the Kurds and standing with the Taliban together with Iran against the national security interests of the United States and the Kurdish people that have been an ally of our country. Can you comment on that, sir?
Yes, of course, Denice. Thank you very much. This is something that really I cannot swallow. It's very, very sad, very, very sad, because the Kurds, as you said, men and women were the only ally of us that stood there and fought very, very much, gave thousands of lives, and won this ISIS and all the other groups of Turkey, the jihadist one. And all of a sudden, I wouldn't like to see Kurds to be by themselves, and Erdogan and Turkey to attack them. And we know from the oath of the Kemal Atatürk that they want to get all this area. And they want to destroy the Kurds because, they don't like Kurds. They say that they are terrorists. The Kurds are not terrorists. Kurds are pro-Western. They were always pro-Western. They're not like the other Islamists and so on. And we should keep them there and create, as we have thought many times, a stronghold, a Kurdistan, a state of Kurdistan. They deserve that.
So you support
yes,
an independent Kurdish state, then?
Oh yes, there are about 40 million, Denice.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I believe they should have a state. And of course, we know under Saddam Hussein used weapons of mass destruction, gas and chemicals to kill innocent Kurdish families, civilians in northern Iraq, which is why former President George W. Bush initiated a no-fly zone over Iraq, was to protect the Kurdish population in northern Iraq. And yet Democrats, liberal progressives, still say that, well, Saddam Hussein never had chemical or biological weapons. Well, what do you think he killed the Kurds with?
No, come on.
I mean, he was killing his own people that were Iraqi citizens and civilians with chemical and biological agents.
If I make a comment here,
yes.
Denice, I mean, we make a great gift to the Iranians when we kill Saddam Hussein, because he would be the best balance against them. Anyway.
Yes, well,
he was ruthless.
Well, Saddam was pretty ruthless himself, but I want to speak to one other thing that came across my my purview the other day, and that was an article that was published by Steve Emerson's investigative project. And ladies and gentlemen, you could take a look at it. It's the investigative project by Stephen Emerson. I think it's investigativeproject.com, if I'm not mistaken. And he talked about how Islamists, people that support terrorism here in the United States, have been praising Erdogan at the United Nations yesterday, Sunday and Monday. I'm concerned about the fact that Islamists are basically Turks here in our own country, in the United States of America, strongly support Erdogan and call Erdogan a man of peace and love and vision, as this man continues to torture thousands of people in Turkish prisons because they have opposed his very strict Sharia law policies and have continued to arrest people who speak out against his brutal dictatorship. Your thoughts, sir?
Denice, this is a continuation of what happens in Europe. In Germany, there are about 4 to 5 million Turks who are loyal to Erdogan, and they say the same things. This is why all these Islamists say this, because Erdogan is and was and tried to be the leader of all extreme Islamic state and create a caliphate. If we see that from this angle, we see and understand what the people, the Islamists, think about their Sharia law and their God and their, Quran and so on. They see him like sent by God. This is crazy, absolutely crazy. Mm-hmm. And we know that here Erdogan and Turkey has funded Omar, that came from Somalia, to be elected as a congresswoman, I think.
So yes, Turkish elements have supported Ilhan Omar. Yes, the representative from the state of Minnesota. Yes, sir.
So he's received by all the Islamists like
an angel
sent by God.
A gift from God, certainly, yes. Mm-hmm. And certainly he is a gift to the Islamists in America, and of course in Germany and France and England. It's deeply disturbing the number of Islamists that have flooded into Europe as a result of the wars in Syria and Iraq. And it's incredible the amount of undermining of our Judeo-Christian values that continues in Europe today, and on university campuses and parts of the United States and in the U.S. Congress. Sir, I want to give you the final word. How would you like to leave us today with your thoughts on, the president speaking out about freedom and the right to live your life according to your religious beliefs and how you believe God intends you to live your life, and thinking about that in the context of having a Sharia-loving president in Erdogan that wants to actually persecute and arrest those that may be Christians and disagree with his Islamist regime. How do you want to leave the show today, sir?
I would like to say that these are two completely different things. Our president, a man that speaks the word of God for freedom of speech, of religion, of peace, and the other one who is sent by the opposite, the dark area, who wants to do all these persecutions and killings and raping like they did in Cyprus and so on. So I would, Denice, I would like, something, I would like to be able one day to talk with our president, because it's evident to me that they don't give him the right information. They don't give him the right information in many, many, many things like this and much more. And I hope that one day this will happen.
I hope so too, sir. President Trump, if you're listening, Admiral Dr. Peter Kikarias would love to sit down and have a chat with you about the threats posed by Turkey to the national security of the United States of America, Israel, our most important strategic ally in the Middle East, and our NATO allies. Admiral Kikareas, thank you so much for coming on the Denice Gary Show today. We greatly appreciate it. It was an honor, sir. Have a blessed and wonderful evening. Thank you.
You too, Denice. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about one of my favorite restaurants, Frugati's Restaurant, right there on Coffee Road here in the city of Bakersfield. It's rated one of the best Italian restaurants. Well, number one, is rated the best Italian restaurant, not one of, but the best Italian restaurant in all of Kern County and Southern California. We want to thank Ralph Frugaletti for supporting the Denice Gary Show. We appreciate him. When you go to Frugati's Restaurant located on Coffee Road in the city of Bakersfield, please, when you stop by and say hello, tell him that you heard about his restaurant, Frugati's Restaurant. You heard about it on the Denice Gary Show. And to Scott Baker, our former Marine Corps officer, we want to go to that commercial next. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're working for a major defense contractor, you want to hire Anatase products. Let's go to that commercial, please. Thank you.
President Trump has correctly stated that economic security is national security. And in the Tehachapi Mountains of Kern County resides a United States defense contractor, Anatase Products. Here is the Silicon Valley of the aerospace industry, right here in East Kern. Anatase Products is a forward-leaning manufacturer and distributor of hardware sold to major defense and aerospace companies. We're talking about Boeing, Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon General Electric, and on the list goes, as well as to every United States ally worldwide, including Israel, America's most important strategic ally in the Middle East. And for everything that flies, Anatase Products is providing the parts. And with me today is the president of Anatase Products, Scott Baker. Hi, Scott.
How you doing?
Scott, tell us why you believe this corner of Kern County is the hub of the aerospace industry.
Well, this portion of Southern California here out in the Antelope Valley, it contains, some of the most cutting-edge technology going on in aviation today. We have some of the UCAS programs with unmanned technologies going on. We have Edwards Air Force Base out here who's doing continual testing in their area. We have the Naval Weapons Station up there at China Lake doing some fantastic cutting-edge stuff, cruise missile technology, and those things are going on. We have Scale Composites locally doing a lot of composite technology, which is new. We have SpaceX, which is a private one private entity putting things into space now. This area is the growth center for aviation's future, and this is the area I think that as a nation we need to be concentrating some of our effort and taking this technology. And as we all know, with the space program from Apollo years ago, out of these technologies, we the private sector are going to reap some of the benefits of that.
Thank you, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Baker, president of Anatase Products. Anatase Products, located in the beautiful mountains of Tehachapi, California, in eastern Kern County, is home to some of the most innovative and specialized technologies in the world, including those at the U.S. Naval Air Warfare Center, Weapons Division at China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base, as well as Stratolaunch, launching satellites capable of delivering multiple orbits in a single flight to space. And it is Anatase Products that has provided the manufactured devices. And the president, Scott Baker of Anatase Products, Marine Corps veteran, reactivated on 9/11 to monitor threats to the homeland, is carrying on a tradition of providing for the security of the United States by manufacturing every kind of fastener on anything that flies, as well as providing a full testing destructive laboratory. Contact Anatase Products, now in business for 30 years, at 661-822-6873, located at 1314 Goodrich Drive in Tehachapi, for your manufacturing and testing needs today.
Such an honor to have Peter Kikarias, Admiral Peter Kikarias, on the broadcast today, former NATO commander. This is a man that, again, as we said, was born in Greece, but has become an American citizen and has worked hard for the national security interests of the United States and as a NATO commander for America's allies. We want to thank him for coming on the broadcast, and we hope that all of you will watch closely events with respect to the Turkish regime and contact the President of the United States just in case he's not been apprised of the threats made by Turkey, of very aggressive statements indicating that Turkey would initiate wars and conflicts in the Middle East region in an effort to retake territory it lost in the First World War, the Great War. I think it's important that we understand that he's working with Russia to build a pipeline to sabotage the Greek, Israeli, and Cypress pipeline into Europe, that he's wanting to have nuclear weapons available to him. All of these things, his military alliance with Russia, these are issue areas that are of great concern to the United States, to the American people. And we would certainly like the President to hear these concerns at a sit-down meeting with Admiral Kikareas. So I want to thank him again for coming on the broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for listening to the Denice Scary Show. This is Denice signing off.